Hello everyone. Today is St. John's Eve, June 23rd, and it's an evening that I really love, and I've always been drawn to this practice. It's an Italian practice, and it is the making of the Acqua di San Giovanni, and I want to share it with you because it's something I've always really enjoyed. And what we do is, traditionally in Italy, this would be the day that you would gather plants, usually from open fields, primarily wildflowers and herbs. Tonight I couldn't go out into the fields because I worked all day and there's not, a lot of wild fields around. But I do have a very big garden and I grow a lot of different plants. The plants that you would usually look for are ones that are aromatic, so something that has a beautiful smell or that has meaning for you. Because what the water is supposed to do is, it's a type of holy water, if you will, created by the essence of the plants, which are thought to have a particular potency today, and through the evening into tomorrow. So what I have gathered, I'll share with you some of these. I've already filled up my bowl with nice clean water, and then I'm going to slowly add all of my plants. Normally you would want to gather, or it's said that you have 100 different types of plants. You don't have to do that. That's quite an undertaking. And if you have, a huge wildflower field where you could go and do that, then have at. But I usually think there's about 20 different plants, and every year, at least for me, it's going to be different. So some people have a very strict recipe that they use, and they always use the same one, and it's been passed down for many generations. Mine is a little different. I like to see what's blooming in my garden, or kind of wild out around my house. It's in public spaces where I can actually pick it. and from there, I sort of build off of it. I tend to think also about what's been ailing me, because this particular water is thought to have curative effects. And the whole process of it is quite interesting. So we start off with the gathering of the plants. And so here's what I've gathered, and I'll go through the different plants with you. Again, you want plants that are very aromatic. The first one I picked from the garden is it's not flowering yet, but it's a little bit of fennel, which, smells so good. So I'm just gonna kind of slowly add my plants to the water. Fennel is associated with the sun, that kind of heat that comes with it, especially when you think about at summer's end, you have those beautiful yellow sort of sprays. And it's also associated with fire, which, interestingly, in France, this night is celebrated very differently than in Italy. Although I think they also have the fires in Italy as well, but we have usually St. John's fire, which I always just loved when we would go we lived in the mountains when I lived in France, and they would have, in a lot of the smaller villages, they would build large structures, and then on St. John's Eve, they would light the structures on fire, and you would jump over the fires to leave behind any of your worries or ailments, and to have luck into the summer and the coming year. Now this is field Veronica. Isn't that pretty? I always love these. I also just added some garden sage, which is also very aromatic. So you'll have that wonderful smell of the sage. Here's some Veronica. And we'll have some yarrow. Another kind of fiery plant. This one is associated with protection. If you think about yarrow in the garden, not much will bother it. It's a very strong plant, so you can always plant it next to plants that are a little less hardy or that are more attractive to pests. We'll kind of keep them away. And actually, before I get to this other one, there's another plant that does the exact same thing, and that is rue. And rue is a very important plant in Italian culture. So there's some beautiful rue. I'm gonna just snap these up. They almost have like a lemony smell. People used to cook with it quite often, but it can have some toxic effects if you use too much of it. So I just use it in here, will be just fine. Some people are a little more sensitive to rue. It can bother the skin. I've never had a problem with it, so I'm just going to add it to mine, but you might be mindful of that if you're making your own. So rue is a highly protective plant. Even in the garden, it will disperse any pests. It really is an excellent garden companion and an excellent overall companion. Now another one here, this one I'm using really specifically for myself because I sadly have always suffered from migraines and headaches. This is feverfew, which is a plant that actually helps with migraines medicinally. It's one of my favorite helpers since I do get those often. Not as often as I used to, but they're still hanging on a little bit. So I'm adding these in the hopes that this will be infused into the water. Okay, what else did I grab? Some oregano. Again, another lovely aromatic. I was actually going to do this outside, but my neighbors, I think they have some inflatables or something for the kids out there. It's a little bit loud, so just figured I'll just do it in here. But this will end up going outside, and I'll explain a little bit more of that. I just added the oregano. Add these little guys. And we have, oh yes, the white. I had a few, a little rose, a white rose that just kind of crumbled when I was near it, and I thought, well, that's a lovely thing to add. I love roses. And then a little bit of peppermint. That smells so good. So as you can see, my bowl is starting to fill slowly. Immerse into the water. Another one in there. I also have one of my, it's a little bit of oregano, one of my favorite plants is rosemary. You know, I always think about just the evergreen quality of rosemary. At least where I live, it stays green all year round, and so that kind of endurance of the rosemary and memories are related often to rosemary. Our ancestors, we kind of associate the plant rosemary with remembering them as well. And I also have lavender. So you have just a few pieces of lavender from the garden. Put them all in there. So I'm getting a very full bowl. I have a little bit of mugwort. I have family members right now who are having a bit of a hard time sleeping. This should do the trick. I'll add that. And then this is one of my favorites too. This is a wildflower, and it's marshmallow, and these were used for perfume. They have a really lovely scent. It's very subtle, very sweet. Just trim a little bit off. And almost to the end. And I have 3 little sweet wood ruff. They're almost kind of on their way out. These are also evergreen, sort of, but they only flower right when the strawberries are kind of coming up, which is right now too. They taste really good together. And then one last one, which is this beautiful yellow rose that we've grown. I'm just gonna put that one right in the middle. Now the one plant I'm missing because I don't have any right now, and I didn't have time to go out looking for it, is St. John's wort, which would have been a traditional plant that we would use this time of year, you know, for obvious reasons. I do think this tradition is probably a lot older and maybe related to older traditions, but I don't have any historical proof of that. So I will just, you know, we could just call it St. John's holy water or St. John's water. And what's thought to happen is you leave this outside overnight and it steeps and the smell is just amazing. But the important part is it needs to catch the dew of the morning, which is thought to have magical properties or properties that are healing. And it's believed that around midnight and then into the morning, the Madonna gives her blessing on the water, as does St. John. And then what you do in the morning after dawn, because you want to make sure that it has the dewdrops from the early morning, you clean out all of the herbs, and then you take the water and you use it to wash your face, the top of your head, and your hands. And it's believed to get rid of any curses, any malocchio, anything that is ailing you, at least for this particular moment. It's supposed to give you like a clean slate, and it is thought to be extremely potent. So I do this every year, and you will be delightfully surprised at the smell, just the feeling of washing your hands in that really cool water that has been infused with all of these amazing plants. Obviously, don't use plants that are toxic. Just use plants that are, it doesn't all have to be ingestible, just plants that aren't going to irritate your skin or cause any other issues. And that's about it. I hope you enjoy and that you have a chance to do this yourself. I'll show you what the full bowl looks like. Oh, I forgot one. Oh, and it's an important one. How could I forget the little purple bells? So I've got some little fairy hair bells with this here, which I always think of the fairies and the fae. I'm very inclined to think that they are the ones doing a bit of the blessing, and that the plants themselves are also working their magic and healing. This is one that my daughter really enjoys. And there it is. And if you have St. John's wort, I do think it is a lovely addition. I just don't happen to have one this year, but maybe next year it can change. Whatever's growing and whatever's asking to be added. Have a great night.